Oh, we're live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Shirley. Is it still
Good morning, Bryony?
Welcome, everyone. There's apparently 176 people watching us, which I find
Hello,
very...
176 people. Hello.
Welcome to my bedroom. This is my bedroom. Shirley, where are you this morning?
I'm at my mum's house, so I come up to see her now because we're in a bubble. So I'm either in London or I come up and I check on my mum who's 82. She has cancer, so I come up and I check on her to see how she's doing. So I'm in my lounge and there's a picture of my brother when he was a baby up on the wall. So I put him there so I can kind of see him out the corner of my eye.
Oh, bless you. Now, Shirley, I'm so excited to be talking to you this morning. So I'll just do some introductions.
Okay.
Not that I think you need any introducing, but in case anyone knows, I'm a columnist at Stella. I'm also a mental health campaigner. I run something called Mental Health Mates. And Shirley, obviously, she's the Queen of Latin. That's right, isn't it? Queen of Latin.
So they say.
And I mean, I don't need to tell you, the head judge on Strictly Come Dancing. But the reason I love Strictly, so I'm excited on that level, but I'm also excited because you are such an amazing advocate for mental health issues. You've done work with Calm, which is a campaign against living miserably. You talk about this stuff so often, and I think that's really important. And when this session is keeping anxiety in check, how to manage mental health in crazy times, and I feel like now qualifies as a crazy time, don't you? I think if any time's going to qualify as one, it's...
Well, I've never in my entire life ever come across a situation that we are in right now. So I would say that qualifies to say crazy.
But so there's so much I want to talk to you about. But when we were talking before, you were talking to me about why you took the job on Strictly, because a lot of people would have done it for the sequins and the glamour, but that wasn't your reasoning, was it, Shirley?
Well, no, because I've been in my industry for so long, and it's a glitzy glamour industry anyway. And at the time, my son said I should go for the job when Len decided he wasn't doing it. But of course, I had no TV experience and I was being bullied in my own industry. So it just seemed, okay, the next step, we should try. Mark wanted me to try. That's my son. So we tried for the job, and I fast realized I was already set in my own world, of which I love my industry. But I was able to use this beautiful experience for Strictly as a platform to talk about anxiety, men's mental health in general, to be there for my mum and the cancer charities and the NHS and so many different things I've been able to use to have a voice. And I think that's what I decided when I got the job. Yes, it's a fantastic job. I love it. It's a family. Who would have thought a woman of 57, no TV experience whatsoever, would land this job? But when I sat down with my son and we talked about it, because he's on Dancing with the Stars over there, very high profile, he also is an advocate for mental health. As you know, I lost my brother to suicide, and it just seemed a great platform to share and care and have other people communicate and know that they're not alone.
I want to talk a bit more about your brother David, that's a picture of him up there in the corner.
When he was a baby.
Oh, bless.
Absolutely.
First of all, I just need to, I in my excitement at talking to you, I've forgotten to do the housekeeping, as they call it in the online world. I just need to let everyone know that Shirley and I are going to chat till about 11:45, and then we're going to do 15 minutes of questions and answers. So if you want to ask a question, there should be a little chat thing, and you can if you click on the question mark, I think that will allow. Well, I maybe get it wrong, but you can ask us a question, or you can ask Shirley a question, and we'll all have a nice chat. Also, at some point, there will be some offers coming up on your screen, special offers by Stella Live's sponsors that you're very welcome to take advantage of. And I think that's it, really. But oh, look, here's one. One's just popped up. I'm going to close that. So anyway, Shirley, going back
and how do I close that?
Oh. There should be a little cross. Shirley and I, let's all be honest, we're all very new to this technology.
I see it. Close.
Yeah.
I did something right.
I like. Oh. I love that we just need to be really honest about how we're all learning and feeling our way on all of these platforms. So you're, oh, I've lost Shirley. Is she still there?
I'm here.
I'm here. For some reason, I can't see you, but I'm gonna continue to. Can everyone else see Shirley? I'm sorry about this, everyone.
I'm on.
I'm okay. Well, I'm going to just chat to you because no, Shirley. Yes, you're both there. Okay, some people can see you.
Can you see me?
For some reason, I can't see you, but I can't see you, but I can hear you, and that's
as long as you can hear me.
That's all that matters. So, Shirley, let's talk about your passion for mental health, because you suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety, and you've spoken a lot about it. You also, your brother David died by suicide, and you have been very honest in talking about it and helping others. I mean, this is such an important thing to talk about, suicide in particular, because it's like the last taboo, isn't it, of mental health. We can talk about anxiety and depression, but suicidal thoughts are just like, don't go there. And it's until 1961 suicide was illegal, and so it's still there's that shame and stigma attached. Could you talk to us a little bit about David and about why you do what you do in his memory?
Well, David we both raised on a housing estate by a single mother. And David was a really strong character, burly type of chap, very, very strong in the times that I was with him. And but throughout his life, he suffered a little bit with anxiety, with depression here and there. And then when he was about 44 years old, he took a real sharp turn out of the blue. He was splitting up with his girlfriend at the time. He had a 10-year-old daughter, and he just didn't seem to be able to cope with life at all. And my mother, we didn't understand a lot about mental depression. And of course, men don't really like to talk about it. Women, obviously, we talk a lot more, we gas, we gab, but men think my brother thought it was a taboo subject that people would appear to think that he was weak. Of course, now we realise he's not weak. He was just crying for help. And my mum came down. She was with him about 6 or 8 weeks. He was in a terrible, terrible, terrible situation. And there was one point where we were going to try to get him sectioned at the hospital. But as my mum pulled up in the car, there was people he knew in the car park, and he wouldn't go in. So he wouldn't even go to the hospital. So she brought him home. She nursed him. She was with him. She chatted with him, the whole bit. And then my son got this little job in St. Paul's Church singing. And I just said to my mum and brother, why don't you come down for one day? Change of scenery, you'll both feel good. And David didn't want to go. My mum was reluctant. I pressured her a little bit to come. She came down for one day, and it was that day he decided to take his own life in our home, which my mum still lives in because she feels like he's here and present, and for all those reasons. But if I knew what I know now, if I'd have known then, I would have approached things in a completely different way. Of course, there's a blame that's associated with yourself, and over years and counselling and various talking to some fantastic people who've also had these problems, I realised that when somebody sets their mind for suicide, often they will go through with it. What we have to be able to do is see the signs. Mm-hmm. I didn't see the signs. I was so wrapped up with the 3 children and running here and running there and in my own dance industry, not educated enough. There was nothing on TV and nothing to read or anything like that. So, yeah, he just went downhill, and it was just that day. And I'll never forget, coming down the stairs in my house in London. My son had opened the door. My foster son had opened the door. 2 policemen. I walked out. My son had stayed out for the night. So, you see 2 policemen at the door. You've let your son stay out for the first time. And the policeman said, Mrs. Rich. I stepped aside. My mother moved forward, and it was her son. And it was such drastic news that even 17 years later, I can put myself at the bottom of those stairs. I can see this woman, my mum, who lived with my brother, and they were super close. And, one day, that's what it was. One day out of several months, she'd chosen just to come down to see her grandson. And I think that we'll live with that forever. Of course, we're trying to resolve the fact not to take personal blame, but you do. The thing at the end of the day, you can have as much counselling as you want, but you still, that element of what if I'd have asked better questions? What if I would have gone down personally in my own car? What if I hadn't asked my mum to go down there? But I did not see the signs. He had been through his life strong, burly, this brother that was not only my brother, he was like a father, he was a friend. We spoke every day at 4:00. We always had this thing, if anything happened to him, I'd take care of his daughter. If anything happened to me, take care of my son. He raised my son pretty much the first 11 years of Mark's life because I was always traveling. So it was a real close-knit brother, sister, mother unit. It was just the three of us, you know.
This is why it's so important we talk about this stuff, because, you know, you talk about feeling blame and you mustn't blame yourself at all. And no, you know, but when we have no information about mental illness and mental health and how to deal with it, it's impossible for people to see the signs. You mentioned the signs. Would you mind sort of like talking us through, in case anyone is, you know, and also I know that there is a lot of misunderstanding about how to deal with someone who is suicidal, and people are scared that if they even mention it, if they're going to plant ideas in people's minds, which just isn't true. I know it's very important that you can ask those questions and say, are you thinking about ending things? Could you talk us through what the signs are?
Well, with David, with my brother specifically, he was an outgoing person. He was always traveling, fishing, he was an outgoing person, and suddenly he was outgoing no more. So you could say housebound, for the want of a better word. He wouldn't eat, he couldn't sleep. You know, we got medication from the doctor. He was crying all the time. He was in a ball in the corner. And this was, like I say, a good, strong man. And my mum's era, they don't talk about things. So I only got part of the information on the phone from my mum. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that, you know, my mum's 82. They come from an era where you keep your business in-house. Yeah. You don't talk about it. I will deal with it. It's my son. But there was definitely signs there. You know, 1 minute be super up, the next minute super down, 1 minute very chatty, the other day you wouldn't hear from him for 3 or 4 days. So all these signs put together, I feel I should have spotted. Now when I'm around friends or I'm in company or I know somebody specifically well, if I see those very same signs, I'm very much, how are you feeling? You know, would you like to chat? Can I be there for you? Would you like to go for coffee, tea? If they want to be alone, you know, I send a little message, you know, I'm always here. So I'm much more cued in on simple things to ask. I would not go into, are you going to commit suicide, or do you feel like this? More of a gentle approach from me, you know, just to get them chatting about life in general and how lucky we are to be alive, because the life is so short in the first place. You know, and David, he raised his daughter from a baby. So he never lived with Mary's mum, and he raised her. And, we were giving him hope of, you know, you've got to take Mary to school and you've got to do this and come on, you've got a daughter. Nothing could change that man's mind. He was fixed.
And it is, and I think that, you know, it is so important, as you said, to talk about these things like gently. And also, I think lots of people, we live in a culture that feels that it has to be able to provide solutions. So if someone comes to you with a problem, you have to be able to go, well, this is what you have to do, and this is how you do it, and here's a magic pill that'll make you better. But actually, sometimes I think the most important thing is just to be able to listen without any prejudice or judgment and be there to hold someone through this pain, right?
I think listening is the most important thing, like you said. You don't always have to give an opinion. You don't have to have all the answers. But sometimes people just need you to be there to make sure that they feel loved. I mean, and another point was that the doctor put David on medication. And after he passed, and I took the medication and read it, it said in small print, may excel the feelings of suicide. Now, we weren't told that when he was given that medication. So that means, and who reads? I don't know, many of the viewers out there might, but at the time, being busy, I didn't know to read the small print. My mum didn't know to read the small print. So, you know, there is a period, even when you're on that kind of medication, where the medication has to kick in, as they say. So you have to be ultra there for them all the time. Yeah. And I just think that you've got to be kind, caring, giving and loving. You know, you need to make people feel safe. If they want to talk to you, they'll talk to you. If they just want to sit and stare at you for 2 hours, that's fine too. They want to pick up the phone and just talk about the weather, it's okay. I think it's finding those soft solutions just so that people know that you are there and that life is really worth living.
Shirley, how have you managed? Because you have your own mental health issues yourself, and how do you? Because when we spoke on the phone the other day, you were talking about the toolkit you have to that you employ when you are feeling low. And could you tell us a bit more about that? The things that you do to keep yourself, from plunging into that horrible black dog and icy cold anxiety.
I think that from an age of about 16, suddenly that meteoric rise that I had at 16 in the dance industry, I started to feel anxiety then. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to cope with it. Just the heart pounding and you get flustered and it's difficult to cope. So I felt anxious from there. We do have mental illness within our family through cousins and various things. So it is a little bit of a strain that runs through our family. But over the years, either through counselling, I have had a lot of counselling over the years, and I like to meditate. I find that taking some me time. Now we don't always have a lot of time for me time, but me time can be 20 minutes. It can be just sitting in a quiet place. It can be breathing. It can be gathering your thoughts. It can be focusing on the glass half full. It can be just positive thoughts that are going inside your mind, because we live in a negative world.
Yeah.
Let me say, I live in a negative world. And that negativity I used to find was like little balls. They stick. So I have to literally try to disassociate and get rid of the negativity, which is still with me today. Like I say, I'm in a man's industry in the ballroom world. It's not always the most pleasant place to be in, but I love it. I wouldn't change it. I'm so grateful for my industry, but I have suffered through that, and I've had to find tools, whether it's exercising, whether it's breathing, whether it's yoga, or I have my go-to person, which is my mum. She is my closest person I can talk to about anything. She'll correct me if she doesn't think I'm in the right place. And sometimes, like this morning, I had an anxious moment and she will just sit and listen. Sometimes, like you say, you don't need to comment. It's just, and then she'll say, do you feel better now that you've talked about it? And I said, yes. And she said, okay, go off, get changed, do your thing now with Bryony this morning. And, it's finding things that you can, whether it's reading, whether it's talking, you have to find solutions to decompress, I find, particularly in the society I work, because I'm go all the time, dealing with the suicide, dealing with my mum's cancer, and dealing with 2 failed marriages, and dealing with a son who lives in LA and I live here. I chose to move last year, and I used to live 5 minutes from my son. So it's been a lot more anxious over the last 12 months that I've lived here, for sure.
Really? And tell me, but I know that lockdown has been apart from the fact you have a broken ankle, don't you, right now, or a sprained ankle?
I have a stress fracture and pulled ligaments.
Okay, and that was from running, wasn't it?
That was from, because when I first went into lockdown, I couldn't even tell you the feeling I had. I didn't know how I was going to sit my butt in the home and not be able to go out. So my partner, Daniel, that I was living, we chose to isolate together. We only used to see each other once a week. Now we're suddenly going to live together and self-isolate. How's that going to go with a man? I've got no idea. But we quickly realized that I needed a regime, like getting up, setting the times, because I was just cleaning. Nope, we're going to do 2 hours of this. We're going to do an hour of meditation. You can have 2 hours to clean. Then you can have your little social walk outside your home, because I wouldn't go to the park or anything because I'm a bit paranoid. And it was just finding things to do. I chose to cook. I thought, okay, I'm going to learn to cook. Terrible cook. I did cook and I ate everything I cooked. And guess what? I gained 20 pounds, not realizing. When I came to see my mum once, I was able to bubble with her. She opened the door. She looked at me ever so candidly and she went, Shirley, have you been eating all the cookies? And I said, why? She said, I think you should hop on the scales. And to my horror, I had gained 20 pounds. Now I'm quite comfortable in my own skin, but nothing in my closet fitted. So it was a little bit more about, now I need to get in shape. So then I start running and I start even intensifying the exercise. And this is how I got the stress factor. Now I'm still working out every day with the boot, with a trainer, doing different various things. And I'm working on my weight. Not out of a vain issue. It's more out of health. It's more out of where I feel comfortable. It's about me, because I've got some large friends and they're great and they look amazing and, you know, they do their thing. But for me, it's about healthy. I don't want to feel sluggish. I don't want to not be up and running and my mind going. So I chose now to take this 14-week program to get myself in shape for when Strictly starts again.
Aha!
Aha!
Well, the thing is that everyone has their like for me, I am a large lady. You can't really see.
You're a beautiful lady. I love your booties.
Oh, and I've put on a few pounds during lockdown. Who hasn't? You know, the world won't end because I've eaten all the cookies, right? But to me, the exercise has been so important. Like every day, I wake up and my motto is start the day with at least 5K. Do you know what I mean? Because then it doesn't matter if you haven't done anything else for the rest of the day. At least you've been out there. So I think exercise is just so important for your mental health. Strictly, obviously, that is going to happen, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I have to get in those clothes, so I have to be reasonably what I was before, so I can fit in clothes. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go up a dress or 2 or 3 or 4.
That's fine. But I think people will be really excited that Strictly is going to happen. It is going to be on our screens. What, by the end of August or?
No. So it's going to be a 9-week episode now. So it'll air somewhere in October. So it'll be shorter. And of course, the professionals, which I do believe was released yesterday, will be self-isolating in a hotel with the celebrities. The BBC have gone all out to do everything they can to stick to the guidelines. Sarah, our executive producer, a woman, absolutely brilliant. The woman is brilliant. She has thought about absolutely everything. The judges' decks will be extended. You know, there'll be one-way traffic in, one-way traffic out. I'm not quite sure how it'll work in the ballroom. But as she said at the beginning, how can you have a winter, and let's say we have a second wave and we have to stay in, a winter without some glitzy glamour, something to look forward to?
We need Strictly. We need Strictly to get us through any kind of, and that'll be so interesting. But also, I know that for you, you are such a brilliant activist and advocate, and I know that this morning you've had confirmed to you that you are going to have a meeting with Oliver Dowden, the Culture Secretary, no less, on Thursday, to basically tell him that he needs to. They need to open ballrooms because obviously, this time next week, pubs will be open, restaurants will be open, but gyms and sports places are still not allowed to. Can you talk to us a bit about this kind of campaigning that you want to do to get ballrooms open again?
Well, first of all, I have this huge love for Strictly. It came so late in my life, but all my life, from age 7 years of age, I've been in the ballroom dance industry. And I have so many people writing to me. We have hundreds of thousands of studios all over the UK. It's a multi-million pound industry. There are so many people so scared that they're going to have to close their doors. And that makes me nervous for the boys, for the little toddlers that go in, for the exercise, to keep their mental health going, or even the older people that go in 2 or 3 days to the studio that, maybe they're alone at home, maybe they have no loved ones, and they found an outlet in a dance studio where they can go chat, get some exercise, be around people. I get nervous, I get anxious, I really do get anxious about why. And this is why I'm so grateful to Oliver. Please just listen to me and let me explain how we can social distance as dancers. Everybody out there is a Strictly fan. You will probably associate ballroom dancing as a man and a woman, but it doesn't necessarily have to do that. We have events in our industry where it's single events. We have world championships for single dancers, where the little boys and girls and the adults, they all come one at a time, and then you judge them. They've got a number on their back. So we don't have to dance together. And also I sent some things to Strictly about, to bear in mind when they dance, how to social distance as well on Strictly. So that's going to be an interesting format. But, I just want... Go on.
No, well, sorry, that chemistry. But when you say that all the dancers and celebrities are going to have to self-isolate together, we hear so much about the curse of Strictly. But yeah, how do you socially distance? Well, what I love to see is how, like, well, without getting overexcited because it's not even midday, but how kind of like the energy and
Well,
you know
I
what I'm
could be
talking about.
dancing on screen now. I could, if my foot was better, I could be doing the cha-cha-cha. I could be doing the samba. I can do the tango. As long as I can dance everything solo, and then we could do it like little car parking spaces in the studio, 2 meters apart. There are ways to do it. Hand sanitizing, masks. I know they're worried about heavy breathing, but you see everybody out and about in all the protests and they're all heavy breathing. And you go to the pub, you see everybody out in Bournemouth on the beach. I mean, there's no social awareness going on there. As where I'm in an industry where everybody comes together, we can have a set of rules, we can all talk as a body to make sure, and I'll bet that the industry that I'm in will follow the toughest guidelines. I can assure you of that, because we are such a disciplined industry. We are so disciplined. We don't leave nothing to chance. So again, it's getting whether we can only have up to 12 years old in the studio at a time, and then maybe another day we could have the elderly people that are used to going into the studios, and maybe another day we could have husband and wives or teams that have self-isolated as a group. They could go in and have a private lesson. It could be behind a screen, it could be self-distancing. It's not a leisure activity. It's not like going to the gym, it's not like going to the spa. And that's why I think that perhaps the government are a little bit misinformed. But I am truly grateful to Oliver to at least give me this time to explain.
I love that you're thinking about this, and you're thinking about it so methodically and so forensically. I think it really gives me it gives such an insight into your character and your spirit. And I
have to say though, I do get a lot of help from my niece, my brother's daughter, Mary. She works for the NHS, and she is, her dad died, as we know, of suicide, but her mother also died several years later of alcoholism. So she lost both parents, and then she lost her grandparents, and she's turned out to be this most amazing 27-year-old woman that works for the NHS, and she deals in all, this science, and she'll come on, she'll say, Auntie Shirley, and this, and watch, and do, and so I get a lot of information from her. So it's a shared experience, not only with my niece who works for the NHS and in that department looking for cures and things, as well as my ex-husband, who also came on with me on Breakfast TV this morning to talk about the studios. The British Dance Council have been lobbying to get to talk to ministers. It's been really a whole unison of people. It's not just about me. I'm just the person with the voice because I have the platform. But there's been so much work done in councils, and our president of the British Dance Council, Marcus Hilton, they have been lobbying, they have been doing. Everybody is just trying to get the doors of the studios open for our ballroom dance industry. We don't want it to go down the tubes.
And sequined face masks.
Absolutely, rhinestone, darling, rhinestones, not sequins, rhinestones.
Oh, sorry. We're gonna go to audience questions in a moment, but first of all, I just have one. I have one question for you, and it's really just it's an invitation actually. So I do this mental health podcast called Mad World for the Telegraph, and we've had people like Prince Harry, Stephen Fry, Spice Girls. But I would love you to come on a series with your niece Mary.
I spoke to her, and she said she would do it.
Yeah,
and she will talk to the younger group as well about suicide, about her mother's alcoholism, about self-harm, about the mental ability, and where she started at 10 to where she is now at 27. And I cannot praise her enough. She is an example to all who are out there who think the world is ending, that there is light at the end of the tunnel and there is a way forward.
You are so powerful, Shirley. I'm going to ask you some of the questions that some of our audience members have asked. One of them saying, Shirley, can you persuade Bryony onto Strictly? I'm like, I don't think you'd have to persuade me, but you would have to persuade the BBC that I am of equality. Now, let's talk about there's a few questions about mental health, anxiety, suicide. This is a really good one from Christine Reeves. Thank you, Christine, for your question. She says, any advice, please, on how to deal with a loved one who's going through a bad depression? What do you say and how can you help?
Well, Christine, you're in a great position, in a much better position than I was when my brother was alive. And all I can say to you is that you have to check up regularly. You have to be there. You have to talk calmly. Don't sort of like get the attitude of dogmatic and you'll pull through it and it's going to be fine. I think, which is a little bit the approach I took, I think it has to be on a soft way, and that you have to just talk to them and make sure they understand that you are there for them and you are there just to listen. And if they ask advice, then you can give whatever experience of advice that you have. And if you don't have advice, you can seek advice. You can go to the different, Calm or wherever. The Samaritans, there's so many different places that you can seek help. There's so much online now that you can read. So if you have a loved one that's going through a bad situation, do as much research as you possibly can, but follow up daily, several times a day, without being a bug, because I tend to be a bug, and just be there as a person that they can go to.
Thank you. And also, Shirley, I think it's really important, isn't it, that we let people know that you're not a failure if you're feeling depressed. I think that in our culture, we tell everyone that happy is the goal. And obviously it's great to be happy. Let's not, but it isn't the only way to feel. And I think we need to be much more open about the fact that you will sometimes feel this and you're not a failure. And we can hold each other through these terrible times,
Well, I think with David, he saw it as a sign of weakness and life. And I've just written my book. It'll be out in October. It's called Behind the Sequins. And I cover everything from 4 years old, being raised on a housing estate with single mother, all the way up through anxiety, depression, suicide, all those different things. I think that the way forward is just always communication. You have to communicate. You have to get tools. You have to study. If I'd have known, I would have been on that internet and I would have been studying all about mental health. I just didn't know any better.
Well, but you're helping so many people now, and what an amazing thing for I'm sure your brother will be so proud of you. A question from On Your Heart: what helps you with anxiety?
Anxiety for me is something on a daily basis I have to deal with. It's not something that comes and goes. I'm quite an anxious person. I like to make sure that my house is spotless, and I put pressure on myself if I don't feel like I've cooked the right meals for Danny. And I don't know, I'm always like putting myself under pressure. And sometimes it's to take a step back. If I could go back to my younger self, I would say, well, actually, my mother says it best. She says, when you get to 83, Shirley, you look back and you say, why the bloody hell was I worrying about that? Why was I worrying about that? She said, because the time goes so fast that each obstacle that you come across, you have to deal with it. You can research it, you can communicate. Particularly for me, I've talked about my yoga, my exercise is truly important for me. Taking a step back, breathing. I had my coach this morning with me. We did a lot of deep breathing before I come on here and have to talk about David and different things that I still get anxious about, because I have to open that box that I keep so closely guarded. And I have to share. And my philosophy has always been, if I can help one person, save one person, direct message me or whatever, then that's what I do.
And then there's a similar question from John Heslop, which is specific to lockdown, which is, any advice on how my wife can control her anxiety in the workplace on returning to work after she has been shielding for 16 weeks? Now, you mentioned your anxiety, and I think a lot of us are going to be apprehensive about going back to normal. There's a global pandemic on. What have you done personally to help you sort of reintroduce yourself back into society, so to speak?
Well, first of all, I don't think we'll ever go back into society and it will be normal like we know it, for sure. I mean, I, for one, will be just so on point with the cleanliness and the, wiping down things. But I mean, everybody's wife is different. Every person is different. And being locked up for your wife 16 weeks, I can only say one step at a time. And with the support of a wonderful husband and family, we've been in the house for 16 weeks and now suddenly we have to go outside the threshold. past our front door. That's anxiety in itself. Who are we coming into contact with? Is to take those moments to find for yourself, even in the workplace, is to take that 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm sure employers will allow this, to just take a moment to breathe, to think to yourself, this too one day will pass. And to try to control it. And you can do that through reading, through breathing, through exercising, through maybe a gentle chat with her husband before she goes in the morning. Every single person is different when it comes to anxiety. I know for me, I've managed this trip now from down south up north to see my mum the past couple of weekends, to be in this bubble with her. I was anxious about seeing her. I wanted to cuddle her. I didn't cuddle her. I somewhat still self-isolate in the house. Do you know what I'm saying? But I take one step at a time, one day at a time. And the breathing definitely helps me. I wish you the very best with your wife, because it's not going to be easy for anybody going 16 weeks from the house to suddenly now having to go outside the house.
On the breathing front, there's a very simple type of breathing that if you Google, it's called 3-4-5 breathing. So you breathe in for 3, hold for 4, breathe out for 5, but there's lots of stuff on the internet, and that does help. Shirley, I know that we're coming to the end soon, but there's a load of questions, so I wish we could talk forever. But anyway, here we go. Roseanne Bradley, Shirley, thank you for sharing your story. You mentioned you have had various experiences of counselling. I've really been struggling recently after 2 tries with different people. I still haven't found the right style person for me. Do you have any advice? Thanks. You're fab. And you are.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, first of all, when I was married to my first husband, I had counselling, and particularly to my second husband. I think we went through about 3 or 4 different counsellors, because some of the counsellors I went in, and I say this tongue in cheek and not to be rude to that profession, but I actually thought I was the one ending up counselling the counsellor. So I realised that it wasn't the right person until, again, that's trial and error, isn't it? I just found going to counselling, I think I was in it well over 10 years for counselling. I chose a guy called Dr. Stoll in central London, and he was a really great guy, even to the point when my brother died, he called my mum and I in, he gave us a nice bottle of champagne, he sat and talked to us, didn't charge us. He was just one of them really super people, and I was able to just sit and talk to him, and he would not give me advice, he would let me find my own way, but he was great at listening. I think it's a bit trial and error, so I think that you have to just keep trying, and it could be a counsellor, it could be a good friend that you talk to. I have a couple of really good friends that I can also relieve some anxiety on, so trial and error, that's the best way I can say it. Took me, I think I went through about probably 10 counsellors before I found the right one for myself.
Oh my God, me too. And once you find that right one, it's like
a diamond in the rough. It's a diamond.
Yeah, I finally found mine at 37 when I went into rehab, and I still see him every week. Well, on Zoom like this now, but once you find that person, so it's a bit like finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more questions. There's a really good one. I'm trying to find it here. Pamela Conacher, I don't know if I pronounced that right. She says, to someone trying to support a depressed loved one, it often feels like their reasons for how they feel are either wrong or minor. What do you suggest is a good approach for this? So I guess that's if you are living with someone who's depressed and you kind of can't really understand why, which is, I think, without an education about mental health, there doesn't have to be a reason why. It can be quite a hard thing for people to understand. What would your advice be to someone who's going into this with absolutely no information and is perhaps a little bit unsympathetic?
Well, I can honestly say again with my own experience, no question, no answer the right one. I mean, no matter what somebody says to you, why they're feeling anxious or why they're feeling depressed, we perhaps don't understand that. But for some reason inside their body, they're just living it. They are just that being of being depressed. Again, the same thing I say, seek help. Get some professional advice. I'm not a professional in that industry, but if it was my brother, it was my loved one, knowing I would be sitting there and I would be listening and I would be seeking the best professional help that I could get for that person, because it will only escalate. In my opinion, it will only escalate. And so the best thing is to seek professional help. I didn't do that. So that would be my advice. I'm not the professional to kind of go into that because I don't know the circumstances and I don't know what they're saying, but is to listen, be a great listener, but also seek the correct professional advice.
Now, last question. It's from John again, whose wife is going back to work after shielding. But he asked, would you ever do a Strictly for the public to take part, as his wife would love to be in it and she suffers with anxiety and this would be such abuse? Now, Strictly did used to be with members of the public, didn't it?
Well, I'm not so sure they've ever used members of the public, but I do think it's a brilliant idea. You know, a second series, perhaps, where you could pick, you know, some of our fantastic NHS workers or somebody in society, or just take the bin collectors, for example, the great job that they do. You know, taking somebody from each sphere and walk of life could be amazing journeys, amazing stories. I will certainly put that forward. At the end of the day, I am the head judge, but I don't make the decisions. So, but, you know, I could always put a little word in there. Put a little word in there. I will do my best.
It should key worker Strictly would be, everyone wants to watch it, don't they?
I'm going to write that down because that's lovely, Bryony. Key workers Strictly. Lovely, love it.
I mean, it would be great. And also because you've had all the nurses and doctors in their stress relief in their breaks, doing all the TikTok dance routines together, haven't they? That's been a thing.
But what amazing stories. Because, you know, Strictly isn't just about the dancing. Strictly is about the journey.
Oh,
it's about somebody's journey, even in mental health, even your journey. I admire you for where you are in your life with your journey. My journey, everybody's got a journey. And sometimes it's interesting to listen. I'm a layman, I'm blue collar. Sometimes it's quite interesting for people to learn your journey and what made you as strong as you are, as weak as you are, or your vulnerabilities. I think it's quite interesting for the public to know that they may see me in dance dresses and sequins, but that's not who I am. That's a facade that's put on like a mask. You know, you go out, you do your job because I'm educated in my work. But the actual human being and the trials and tribulations of what we go through, I think people not only can identify, the general public can identify with those stories. I think that is absolutely brilliant. Key workers for Strictly. Thank you for that question. That is absolutely marvellous.
Key workers Strictly. And Shirley, I wish, I mean, I've got to wrap up now, but I literally could spend the whole day sitting here in my bed. Well, I'd like to be on the sofa chatting to you. I just think
I'd love that. I would love that. When all this lifts, I wish I could have all hundreds of people that are out there, 222 of you all sitting in one room, and we could share and cuddle and embrace and love. But I do send love to everybody. This too will pass. Stay strong. Be safe, you know. Think before you do something. That's all I can say.
And Shirley, thank you so much. We look forward to Behind the Sequins, the autobiography. That's out in October.
Yes, and that's going to be that's an interesting journey. A lot of what people don't know. So I've tried to share so that perhaps people can identify and think they're not alone. There is people that go through the same things they do.
And I presume you can pre-order that now on
on Amazon. Yeah,
all the any of your local bookshops, and obviously we look forward to returning to our screens in Strictly in October. And I think you're brilliant. I'm going to text you afterwards and tell you you're brilliant again, and also get you and Mary on the podcast. Thank you everyone for your questions and your lovely feedback. And keep dancing. I guess what we should be saying, right?
Keep dancing for sure. Keep dancing. Keep healthy and safe.
Lots of love to you, Shirley. You're a star.
Thank you.
I don't know how to end the session. I'm going to hope someone does it for us. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Lots of love.
Thank you.